Don't. Wait, all right. All set up, everything good to go. Everything set up technically. Doing this, what, 7 weeks now? For a while right now, 6, 7 weeks. Days are going by. But anyway, here we are. So you're tuning in right now to Introduction to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. This is class number 5 that we're doing, which is basically a modification of our famous Heroes Martial Arts Fundamentals of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu program. Modified for shelter in place, modified in such a way, we're taking it nice and slow right now. The idea is you've never done Jiu Jitsu before. This is a great start for it. If you're at home and sheltering in place with somebody that hasn't done Jiu Jitsu before, this is a great introduction for them. We have this live, well, maybe you're watching this live on Zoom or YouTube. We also have that. Feel free to ask any questions out of us as we go through. I'll make sure everything's nice and clear, but we're taking it nice and easy, okay? Now I'm gonna make the assumption that A, you've warmed up before coming in here right now, because we're gonna spend and devote this entire hour-long session to working on the techniques. And being this is class number 5, we're not quite on the full fundamental checklist and the way the numbers are going right now. We're kind of on our own schedule. It's roughly approximately based on that. We're on class number 5. So I'm assuming you watched the first 4 classes already, okay? So today, class number 5, we're gonna continue working on the mount. And I will give you a little bit of review of what we were doing before. Trevor, you can do me a favor and note down. The mount is a ground position. One person's on top, one person's on the bottom, but the person on the bottom cannot use their legs for offensive and defensive purposes, okay? It's a very good position for the person on top. It's a very terrible position for the person on the bottom, okay? Furthermore, to define the mount, it's a position where the person on top has gone ahead and they're straddling their legs over the torso, over the body of their opponent, okay? So I'm sitting here like this, okay? As opposed to say side control or north-south or anything else when I happen to be on one side of the body or the other side of the body. We're gonna get to side control soon, next week actually. But today, mount, okay? By the way, if you watch sport jiu-jitsu competitions, I highly advise you do. You can learn a lot about jiu-jitsu in that sense, and it can be entertaining. Just know from a sport standpoint right there, the IBJJF, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation rules, you know, in terms of a match, a submission will automatically win the match, regardless of what the score is. If the match goes to a time limit right there, there is a scoring system in place. The mount is worth 4 points, okay? I tell you that to say that, you know, in terms of hierarchy of positions, at least from a traditional jiu-jitsu mindset, and the IBJJF is kind of stemmed off of a traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu mindset of what works, how fights go. We consider the mount to be the most valuable position. The mount's worth 4 points. Side controls, which I demonstrated earlier, are actually worth 0 points, okay? So we highly prize the mount, okay? But now we're going ahead and focusing on what we can do on the top. And first of all, as dominant as this position is, or essentially it's the best position in the game as far as we're concerned, one of the best positions in the game, we'll get to that in a few weeks or at some point. as good as it is, it's not necessarily a gimme position. Like I think anybody that's actually trained jiu-jitsu for a while will tell you that the mount can be difficult. Even if you know what you're doing, if the person on the bottom knows what they're doing, if they know their defenses and stuff like that. Okay. Particularly in this kind of more where we're at, this kind of sporty type fashion, whereas I'm not going to try to wail on Trevor's face in this point, or this isn't a fight situation. I'm actually going to try to submit him. Okay. But remember, before I can even get to the submission, I have to think about the 3 prime directives of jiu-jitsu. Okay. Or as we like to say, that whole mindset: safety first, then position, then finish. Okay. Safety, I'm not 100% safe here. There's strange submissions or things like that can happen that Trevor can do from the bottom. Very strange submissions. You're never 100% safe. I'll say at best, maybe 99% safe. Fight situation could be a little bit more one way or the other in this case, but largely I feel pretty safe here. Very safe, but I'm never 100% safe on this. Like, you know, the second you ever think that you're 100% safe in this encounter right there is this time that you think that essentially you get a little bit careless, sloppy, whatever. Like I never have this feeling like I'm 100% safe when I'm in the encounter. I'm not fatalistic or about things, but I'm just aware of things can go south. Okay. But I feel pretty good about being in the mount. Now, as far as position goes, again, by definition, this position is a good position. Why? Way safer for me, way more chances to finish off Trevor, whereas Trevor shouldn't feel all that safe right now. And again, his finishes are very low percentage, almost to the point of being 0, but not quite 0. Okay. So it's a great position for me. However, there are variations of the mount, just like there are variations of any other position we can work. Okay. On a very basic level, we can talk about low positions and high positions. Okay. By definition, low means I'm focusing down towards the hips. Definition is high means I'm focusing towards the shoulders. Okay. So if I wanted to get a low mount, let's rotate on this a little bit, which is one of the easier mounts to get to. I'm going to focus my weight on my hips, on Trevor's hips, pelvis to pelvis. I'm going to go ahead, all of my weight here. Okay. Another prime directive, or the secondary directive, if you will, on jiu-jitsu. You have to go through things. What do I do with my body? What do I do with my legs? What do I do with my arms? Okay. Body, legs, arms. Okay. So what I do with my body, I focus my weight on my core. I focus my weight on my hips specifically, and I place them over Trevor's hips. Okay. What do I do with my legs? I'm going to do a grapevine. Okay. But the grapevine that I do in jiu-jitsu, because I want to protect my knees, remember, legs are underneath Trevor's, toes are pointing up towards the skies, or heels up to the skies, toes always pointed inwards in this case. Okay. The traditional grapevine, a lot of people like to cross their legs out this way, could be risky to your knees, specifically your ACLs. So I'm very protective of that. So toes in, believe it or not, protects your knees. Okay. And I don't like to cross my ankles at this point because if Trevor is feeling vicious, my crossed ankles coming underneath his hips and slamming down right there, I could break my ankles. Okay. Again, I'm never 100% safe, maybe 99% safe. And I'm certainly not going to do anything silly to compromise my safety. Anyway, weight on my hips, core, legs, grapevine, toes up, heels in, or heels up, toes in rather. Heels in at the same time too. Okay. And hands tend to be outstretched, so it's hard to implement, okay, or do anything at this point. Okay. And generally speaking, I can almost kind of arch my back, drive my hips into my opponent to do this right here, so I feel heavy. A lot of times when I sit here and explain the position right here, I have my weight posted off on my hands. So I'm not trying to be too much of a jerk to Trevor at this point, though I know he can take it. Okay. But again, I'm driving my weight on my hips. My hands are outstretched and kind of balanced. And that low mount is an excellent way to go ahead and maintain position, but it's poor on offense. Remember, low tends to be easier to get to, easier to maintain, but it's the expense of offensive capability a lot of times, whereas high tends to be harder to get to, harder to maintain, but I do have more offensive capabilities a lot of times. Okay, it's a very rough rule of thumb. But that low mount, everything I've said so far has basically been reviewed if you go back into the previous classes. But I like to say things to drill into your head. Now let's talk about a high mount, for example. Okay, how does a high mount look, or how's a good high mount? There's actually a few different types of high mounts that we can go. Okay, high, as I said, means I'm focusing up more towards the shoulders. Okay, as opposed down to the hips, I'm up towards the shoulders. Okay, so if I want a good high mount, I like to really kind of creep up right now. Okay,
And essentially, I'm going to drive my knees so they're past the tips of Trevor's shoulders and collarbones right now, squeezing in. Helps that I have to have relatively long legs in this case. But I want to go ahead and straddle them right here. I can go ahead and sit back down right now. Just know that my weight in this case is more on my shins at this point. Shins, and you can see the tops of my feet posted off or pushing into the ground right here as opposed to being on my toes. Okay, so I'm here. You can see my knees are creeping up ever so slightly past Trevor's shoulders. And really, there's no such thing as moving up too far. There's definitely such a thing as not moving up far enough. My weight's on my shins. Okay, my hands, we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to focus more on my body mechanics and where my legs are at this point. Okay, starting off this high mount because there's a few things I can do with this. Now, ordinarily, I've talked about good posture. Remember what we said about good posture? It's shoulders over hips, being nicely rooted to the ground. I want to be shoulders, hips, and driving down to the ground. I want to kind of feel like I'm rooted into the ground, and this is the definition of good posture, which I would do from inside somebody's guard. Mount, I don't exactly like perfect posture in this case. I like on mount to actually have my shoulders creeping up just a little over my hips, maybe about 15 degrees forward in this case, as opposed to having perfect posture in this sense, as opposed to being straight up and down. This is a tip that I picked up from Henry Akins, actually. Okay, and the reason for having this posture broken forward slightly on this is it makes it a bit more difficult for Trevor to make his escapes. Now remember, Trevor's priority is safety. There's some traditional escapes that would work, again, upas and elbow escapes. But sometimes you have to prepare for somebody who does something either unorthodox or necessarily incorrect, okay? Theoretically, if Trevor posted up his arm and reached over there this way and tried to push off and he left this arm up here, it would give me a good opportunity for an arm bar in that case. So you wouldn't expect Trevor to do that on the bottom, okay? It's what I don't expect though, is what I worry about right now. Now, some folks are very big, very strong, very explosive. And although this isn't necessarily the correct way of escaping right there, because I can definitely armbar if I'm thinking about it. If Trevor was just to kind of, if I had perfect posture and blast me in the chest right now, he could actually knock me back this way, okay? Which would cause me to lose my mount, okay? And Trevor also happens to be flexible enough. If I move back this way, he'll throw his legs over me and he'll have even more of a chance of escaping at this point, okay? Because if I have good posture and the shoulders over hips, again, if I'm aware of this, I can go ahead and catch Trevor in an arm bar, but a lot of times, sometimes you'll get too complacent on this. But again, with perfect posture, if he pushes off on my chest, the distribution is going to go backwards and it gives him an opportunity to escape. If I have this posture broken slightly forward, shoulders over hips, and he tries to blast me in the chest, instead of knocking me back, the tendency is to try to lift me up. Okay, I'll actually come straight up this way, almost like a bench press, at which point his arm is going to be extended, and I'll have a huge opportunity to hit the arm bar, or even barring the ability to go after the finish. It's going to be very difficult for Trevor to escape by pushing and lifting him straight off. Even if he has the ability, if he's a bench press champion out there, it's not a good idea to try to bench press anybody straight off. So the posture broken slightly forward helps prevent that, okay? And I might still talk about what my arm's doing right here, okay? Because we have the gi on right now, I like to go ahead and hold on to the sleeves below the elbows, I like my palms facing away from myself when I do this, and I like to pull up, almost like I'm holding the bridle on a horse right now. As a matter of fact, we're gonna call this the Rodeo Mount right now, okay? If you don't have a gi to hold on to, that's fine. Remember, what I do with my core, what I do with my legs is most important. Sometimes I'll just kind of hold him by his arms, okay? Sometimes I'll hold him by the wrists, but it's very secondary to what's going on, okay? To what my body and my legs are doing. As a matter of fact, let's rotate here so your head pointing here towards the camera. You'll notice when I have these high mounts, especially when my knees are slightly past, you'll see what Trevor's arms are doing right there. They're doing that. His arms are elevated right now, kind of in front of his face right now, because of the position of my core and my legs, and my knees kind of squeezing together at this point. It's forcing his arms like so, okay? So holding up or doing anything with the arms at this point is just kind of icing on the cake right there. It's kind of support. It's not my main way of controlling the arms. It's the way the legs are up, the way the knees are slightly past the shoulders, okay? So I'm always kind of looking to scoot up. Again, the key detail when I hold on to these mounts is how these knees are are up past the shoulders right now. Okay, and there's not such a thing as being too high up. Like, you know, if I can slide up as high as I can, I can force the arms up above his head as well. From here, from this perspective, I'm going to go ahead and do this. The more I can do this, the more helpless I am, rather, the more helpless Trevor is. And you'll notice the higher up I am, let's rotate here again. Right here, if Trevor tries to bridge, okay, he's lifting up right there. The further I get away from his hips, the less effective his bridge is going to be. Okay, so I don't like to hover over the hips in this case. I like to be way up here. You can go ahead and pop up and bridge all he wants to right now, and it's going to be difficult for him to do anything. Now, we've got like where our position is on this, where my body has to be, where my legs, where my arms can be. Okay, but like I said, for a second, I know that's not comfortable. But like I said with the mount or high positions right there, it's one thing to get to this position, one thing to maintain the position, another thing to maintain that position. So as good as that might look right there, one of the things about high positions are they're going to take some work to maintain. Okay, there's going to have to be a way to, like, you know, I have to know how to react, I have to know how to move, I have to know a few other things. I have to be active about my maintenance. Whereas in the low mount, I can be a little bit less active. Okay, that's the price we pay for going up high. That's the price we pay for having more offensive capabilities, is I have to be more active about this. Okay, so although Trevor's bridge is less effective, again, I'll use some words like less. I'll use words like safer. I'll never say it's 100% ineffective or 100% effective or 100% safe or whatever. Okay, I have to know how to react to how Trevor might go ahead and try to escape. Okay, like I have to anticipate that with my positioning right there, and I often do. Okay, or I always anticipate what are the potentials. And I not only anticipate what are the potentials in a traditional sense, like I know Trevor knows his basic escapes. I also have to think about the unorthodox escapes or sometimes even the incorrect escapes, which I know can be problematic for the person on the bottom if he does it that way, but sometimes it's effective for various reasons. Okay, I have to think about both situations. Okay, I have to think about, you know, not only the skilled, but the unskilled, not only the weak, but the strong. Okay, somebody being able to blast off and bench press me off. Again, we know that's an incorrect defense because I'll go ahead and armbar in that sense. But it happens, and sometimes it's effective. Okay, but I've already anticipated it by the way my posture is broken forward a little bit. Okay, I do anticipate those bridges, those upas, and again, the fact that I've slid so high up, okay, it's going to make this difficult for that to happen to Trevor. But also, if he has a really great bridge, sometimes he knocks me forward. In this case, I have to be careful. What's the position of my legs, how I move. Okay, if he bridges and I'm sitting too over him and my posture really starts breaking forward and I have to post off like this, Trevor will continue to escape at that point. Okay, because essentially I didn't react properly. And the way I'm not reacting properly if he makes that bridge is this transfers over and I start going and falling over this way. Okay, now the proper way to go ahead and maintain my balance when I have this high mount as Trevor makes this bridge is, again, my actions are going to be more from my hips. I'll drive from my legs, I'll drive my hips forward. Okay, I'll keep my balance. You see how my shins stay on the ground. I see the tops of my feet push into the ground right now. And Trevor can go ahead and make those bridges, and he's just going to wind up tired right now. He's just going to wind up really frustrated because he's putting a lot of effort into this right there, and he's not actually accomplishing anything. Okay, what it takes on my part is my ability to go ahead and move along with him, to feel that motion, be kind of sensitive to what he's doing, okay, and make the appropriate reaction. Okay. Now, I want you to notice as I do this, okay, the two things. Number one, I'm making this reaction. I'm not moving with my hands. I'm not moving with my shoulders. There's something that comes into play that I tell a lot of students here. You got to be cautious about being top heavy. Okay. Remember, we can go high, we can go low. I have to make a decision not only where to place my position statically on my opponents. Do I set my weight on my hips to do it? But I also have to make a decision of where my power is coming from, where I'm moving from, what's the first thing that's going to react. Okay, my first thing to react on these mounts is like go ahead and post off and use my hands. Okay, my hips are already kind of busted at that point. My weight's already falling away. And it's very likely that, you know, at that point, I'm reacting to my opponents and I'm going to be in trouble. Okay, so my reaction is simply I'm thrusting my hips forward into him like so. Okay, or that broken posture from here. Sometimes I can lean back, but it's my hips are going forward. And I also want you to see as I do this, and this is an important detail when I'm trying to maintain this. that I keep pushing my tops of my feet into the ground. Like you see the way literally I'm here, heels up, tops of the feet down. So every time I make that bridge, even if I have to lean way back at that point, I'm constantly trying to push my feet into the ground at this point. Okay, I'll lean back, sometimes the shoulders go back, my feet stay on the ground, and therefore I'm more stable at this point. Okay, I'm more stable at this point. Try this as an experiment. You can go ahead, come up this way, lift your heels towards your butt, hold right here, and you're gonna find the tendency to want to fall forward in that sense. Okay, that's not a strong balance position right here. Okay, and you can try it yourself, but if your feet come up, okay, it's harder to balance at that point. Not necessarily impossible, but harder. Whereas if I push my weight towards my top of my feet, okay, and my knees come up, I can actually be fairly stable in this position, okay, because of how the weight's situated and where we're moving along. Okay, so again, I want you to notice when this bridge happens. That every time he bridges, every time I thrust my hips forward, the tops of my feet stay on the ground. I'm really pushing my feet on the ground. Again, if he does this bridge, every time my feet come up, I'm going to lose my mount at that point, okay? Or at the very least, I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna give Trevor a lot of opportunities to go ahead and make his escape, okay? So drive your feet into the mat as you're doing this right there, okay? And oftentimes, as I've taught this over the years, that's not an instinctive way to do this. The instinct is to go ahead, try to bring your heels in tight, try to grab tight and post out that way. And it makes it much more likely you're gonna lose your mount. So pay attention to your weight distribution, pay attention to where your feet are, pay attention to your core, pay attention to your legs. That's, again, the secondary directive of what we do in jiu-jitsu, okay? Or the tertiary directive, whatever, okay? So that's how to deal with UPA, which Trevor's a traditional jiu-jitsu player right there, or at the very least, he knows the traditions on that. He knows the UPAs. I very much expect and anticipate those UPAs coming, okay? So I have to go ahead and have an active maintenance mindset to how to defend against those UPAs, okay? The other thing, as a traditional jiu-jitsu player that Trevor would try to do, is try to put me back in the guard, okay? Now, at a very surface level, when we're doing this, when we're in this position, because I have this high mount right now, even with my long ass legs, okay, with my knees up here, okay, position of my feet and whatnot, well past his hips or closer to his hips and his legs, Trevor's gonna have a really hard time getting underneath my leg, making the position, making the transition to move underneath and get recall the guard, okay? Very difficult time doing this, okay, I believe, okay? But again, one of the things about having the high positions right here, particularly this high mount, is I need an active maintenance routine, okay? I can't just go ahead and be static about this. I need an active maintenance routine to maintain this mount. And it's gonna be little shifts on my weight distribution, how I move one way or the other. Let's make a rotation so your head's pointed this way. Perfect, okay? Now, from this mount right now, let's just go ahead and say, actually, I'll move over to the side right now. And if Trevor tries an elbow escape, okay, assuming he gets underneath my leg, or if you do the hip escapes, first thing that Trevor's gonna go ahead and do, okay, after he gets at least 1 foot on the ground and gets underneath, is go ahead and just go halfway through an elbow escape right now. There you go, right there. He's going to commit and turn to his side, okay? There's a concept within jiu-jitsu of strong side and weak side. The strong side tends to be the side that you're facing to, okay? The weak side tends to be the opposite side right there. Okay, I use that concept of strong side and weak side a lot in jiu-jitsu. And typically, I tend to fortify, and if I can, I tend to go to the weaker side right there. Okay, but in this case, I'm looking to maintain the mount. Okay, I'm looking to kind of shore up the defense. Trevor's made a commitment. He's moved to his left side right now, my right side. So he's put more attention. He's obviously going to go ahead and try to elbow escape and move his right leg out from under, or excuse me, his left leg out from underneath. Okay. So I have to put a little bit more attention to that side, okay? So, although this will be a bit of an exaggeration, as Trevor goes ahead and turns to his side, okay, because I know what he's doing right now, I will go ahead and shift my weight to a point, so more of my weight goes on this shin, my right shin, as opposed to my left shin, okay? Why? Because this is the one that I need to defend at this point, okay? And it's a fairly imperceptible shift right there. It's not a huge action right there. It's a fairly imperceptible shift right there, okay? It's just kind of here or here. And even that is a bit of an exaggeration right there. You know, a lot of times when I talk about weight distribution and shifts, I don't like to exaggerate my motions. Like I will exaggerate my motions a lot of times when I'm trying to show you something so it's conveyed either in person in class. Sometimes I have to do this. I definitely feel like I have to do this on this kind of Zoom lesson right now, online presence right here. But the more subtle I can make my motions, okay, the better. Okay, that's one of the things that comes with experience in doing jiu-jitsu. I don't like big exaggerated motions. If things go wrong, then it's a lot more effort to get back to the other side. Okay, I'm basically just trying to maintain some sense of equilibrium right now. Okay, so as Trevor moves to the side, the reality is it's a slight shift right here. Okay, but the reality of the situation is moving through, I'm really throwing all of my weight to one side right there. I don't really care as much about that opposite side. It's the weak side. I know Trevor can't make that escape to that side. But if I do this big exaggerated motion like this, then I certainly leave this opportunity Trevor to be faster and to take advantage of that. Okay, so my motions tend to be subtle. Okay, it's a really important lesson about jiu-jitsu here. Okay, so this is just maintenance right now and how I can go ahead and hold on to this position. So I have my high mount, or the variation of the high mount I'm doing is this rodeo mount, okay? Which means my knees, I'm focusing on towards the shoulders, okay? Or Trevor's shoulders in this specification right here. My hips are driving forward. My knees are slightly past his shoulders at this point. Okay, my weight's on my shins, not really on my butt at this point, okay? I know this is an uncomfortable mount for the person on the bottom, but it's not one of those ones at this point where I'm trying to crush and cave his chest in at this point. That'll come later, but I'm not trying to do that. Okay, but I am squeezing with my shins, squeezing with my legs, and forcing his arms up in this position. Okay, tops of the feet in the ground. Okay, if I want to, I have the D, so I want to right now. I can go ahead and pull up right there. See, I'm holding onto his sleeves. Okay, and just pulling up, elbows tight to myself. But it's primarily my legs that hold on to this position. Again, if Trevor tries to bridge, I can thrust my hips forward, I can push my feet into the top of the ground, and Trevor's not going in place. If he tries to move left or right or set up for an elbow escape, I can shift my weight in various positions, or I can shift my weight to the side that he's trying to go ahead and elbow escape from. But quite frankly, if I have this pull on him, if I'm holding onto the sleeves, I think even turning is going to be difficult at this spot. Okay, it's not a static position right now. This is very much a dynamic position right here. Let's rotate around a little bit here. Oh, and we're here. I have this right here. Knees up, shins up right there. Again, my basic rodeo mount position. Again, he bridges. Okay, you guys move side to side, and it's imperceptible ways I'm shifting my weight at this point. Okay, notice the tops of my feet always stay into the mat. Okay, and that is a high mount right there. Okay, like so many things in jiu-jitsu, there's quite a few important details on there, but being that it's not a static position, it's a dynamic position, being that your motions, and when I say dynamic, tend to be subtle. Subtle doesn't necessarily mean easy in this sense. In fact, I find a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, it's much more difficult to be subtle, okay, than, or control your motions right there and see how little motion you can actually do to accomplish position, okay? There's a philosophy on jiu-jitsu in terms of being efficient, I think is the best word on this, okay? I want to use the exact amount of motion and effort that I need to accomplish the goal at hand and nothing more at that point, okay? Why? Because jiu-jitsu is a model of efficiency right here, okay? I want my opponent to tire themselves out. I want them to carry my weight. I want them to be frustrated on this. I don't want to put myself in that same situation, okay? Or have that same mindset right there. Everything about this right now is a model of efficiency, okay? How efficient I can do this, okay? How efficient I can go ahead and accomplish, move on to the next goal, okay? And what is my next goal in this? I'll tell you what my current goal on this right now is simply maintaining the position, okay? Oftentimes I would suggest when you're going ahead and working on a position, particularly mount, like I find that even advanced folks, okay, when I say advanced folks, upper belts even, need to work more on their mount, okay? Even though it's one of the more dominant positions of the game, it's definitely not a gimme position. But I'm trying to work on the subtleties of the mount. I'm trying to work on maintaining that mount. I'm not super concerned with the finish just yet. Okay, we're not even going to talk about the finishes today off of this. I know that's what everyone wants to do, or like that's what you see on this. But look, if I can't maintain a position, I have no chance of finishing off the position. If I can't maintain a mount, we've established this is difficult, there's no possible way I'm going to finish anybody off in the mount. Okay. So I'm establishing, again, it goes back to that prime directive, safety first, and then position. How do I maintain that? Okay. How do I go ahead and establish not only safety and position, but domination and position? Okay. Once I feel I can do that, then I might be ready to move on with the finishes right there. But quite frankly, from the mount, most people will tell you that's difficult. I find that difficult, or at least I found that difficult. It's still depending on which, but it took me a lot of work to get this. I will tell you, as long as I've been doing jiu-jitsu, mount was actually one of the last things I got good at. Okay. It was the last thing I even focused and concentrated on, but it's the last thing that I ever felt that I had any level of domination was the mount. Okay. And I'm going to argue, if you know anything about sport jiu-jitsu scoring right there, the mount and the back are weighted equally in terms of scoring. The mount's worth 4 points, the back's worth 4 points. So you can have the debate whether which position is more effective, which more position is better for you given the situation, which position you prefer. And some of those are personal choices right there. Again, we weight them equally in that. But I would argue in terms of domination, okay, of psychologically bettering your opponent, I feel that the mount is better. Okay, in that sense. Why? I can look my opponent in the eye and be in that superior position and dominate. I'm right in front of you right there, and there's nothing you can do about that. Okay. Whereas from the back, I don't have that same type of domination over you. I can't quite see your face when we're doing this. Okay. In fighting situations, particularly like if somebody was going to go ahead and it was a fight and we're trying to wail on their face right there, what happens? People will turn to their back to avoid those strikes. Okay. Telling us that people would rather give up their backs in a fight situation, if you think about this, than be in a mount. Okay. So it's worth pursuing the domination of that position. Okay. Now, what are some more tips to maintain that high mount? Okay. Maybe if you're watching this on not a live situation right there, you can go ahead, pause, go ahead and drill and work this right there, how to maintain the mount. And that's an excellent drill to work actually with an opponent. I'll tell you how this works right now. Trevor, go ahead and lay down. We're going to start off in a high mount, okay? All the things, all the directions I've given you, I've said start off. We'll go ahead, I'm not near the timer right there, but set a timer, okay? 30 seconds, a minute. 30 seconds is actually a long time to do this drill right there. And the goal of the person on top is simply to maintain your mount. The goal of the person on the bottom is to go ahead and try to escape it. I don't care about finishes at this point, okay? All I care about is mount maintenance right there. If you can stay there, sit in this position and dominate off of this, and if your opponent isn't going anywhere, okay? So you can set a timer for 30 seconds and go ahead and work on that right now. And then you can go top and bottom. And think if all you had to do is just maintain that position at that point, okay? That's an excellent drill to start off with. If you can maintain that position for 30 seconds, okay, with all the tricks and all the skills and all the abilities that your opponent has on the bottom, you're well on your way to thinking that I have enough domination to go ahead and work on the finishes. Okay. If you can't maintain that position for 30 seconds, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this right now. I'm falling all over the place. Well, it's time to work on the position a little more. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'll never use the word easy. Okay. I'm very much advocating that that position takes time to work with right there. And maybe you don't have the idea that you're going to go ahead and look for a finish off of that anyways. Okay. There might be some situations on that. I'll probably link this on the bottom right there, but there's a pretty famous clip of UFC fighter Matt Serra, basically handling a drunk inside of a Cheesecake Factory in Las Vegas during fight week. I don't know why any drunk would try to pick a fight during UFC fight week. No one's walking around, much less a guy like Matt Serra. You might see him right now. I mean, like he's pasta eating and happy these days in retirement. I can say this right now. Matt will say the same thing. He's like literally one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. It belies how agile the guy is and how good the guy is at jiu-jitsu. Remember, he's Renzo's first black belt, or first American black belt, at least depending on you counting on that right there. And Renzo's obviously has a huge reputation, how he's built up his team and stuff like that. And Matt he's actually a former UFC champion too, which will tell you something about him. One of the few guys to actually knock out George St. Pierre. But he's also Renzo's first black belt, the first one, okay, which tells you where his skills are. And I'll tell you, in his prime, that guy was as agile as a cat. Okay, he really was. And there's a great clip of him handling a drunk in that Cheesecake Factory right there. He has this version of the mount. He's just kind of moving back and forth. And he was just basically subdued, talking to the guy, had every opportunity to hurt the guy in the world if he wanted to, go for a finish, strike, whatever. And he just held him in place until the authorities come, until somebody kind of took him off. And the guy was, hopefully now the guy will look back and laugh like, geez, I was a dumbass for like trying to pick a fight with Matt right there, because Matt could have done some serious damage to him. Okay. And it was a variation of that high mount, high move through. Okay. Now handling somebody that's drunk and too stupid to know what's going on is one thing right there. Handling somebody that actually knows what they're doing, somebody that knows the escapes, knows the defenses and whatnot, are something else. Okay. And as we're actively moving through this high mount, we've talked about, I'm anticipating the particular escapes that they will do, both the unorthodox, like, I'm going to go ahead and bench press you off and throw my legs over, and the more orthodox, traditional, I'm going to go ahead and try my upas and elbow escapes. Okay. But what other tips can I give you in order to maintain that mount? Well, sometimes, go ahead and lay back down. Right here. Yeah. Sometimes when you have to do this, sometimes you have to go ahead and take a look. Do I actually have the position that I'm thinking of? Do I actually have that linchpin down, like, or that detail down? Is this the position I actually want? Sometimes the details are subtle. Does this look like a high mount to you? Okay. Maybe you can tell from this camera angle, maybe you can't right now from the screen. I'm going to tell you this mount is problematic. Why is this problematic? Because I don't have control of Trevor's shoulders and his arms. My knees are a little past here. You see his shoulders sticking up. My knees are right now. His elbows get tight. He's protecting his position better at this point. My weight's a little bit further back. This is going to be a better position for Trevor to make his escapes. Okay, this isn't quite a high mount at this point. This is kind of a mount where it's something else right now and possibly less effective. Okay, and again, talking about subtleties, sometimes the details are in the subtle direction right there. Are my legs in position right now? Okay, do I have the correct mount at this point? And I don't quite. Okay, from here, Trevor will go ahead and make better escapes. Okay, and this isn't an unintentional thing that Trevor did, whereas I'm slid over, I'm a little bit lower at this point. This is entirely intentional at this point. Okay, that he got control of his upper body and his shoulders at this point. Okay, I would love to be able to bully my way back up at this point. But usually when I have somebody that knows what they're doing, particularly like Trevor, he's going to go ahead and remember from mountain defense. He's going to protect his face, he's going to protect his neck, he's going to protect his arms, and he's going to protect his position. He's going to hold this tight if he knows what's good for him, because if he loosens up, if he's kind of arms pull out this way, I'm going to move into that high mount pretty quickly. Okay. Now, one way we can talk quickly about that escape right there, like it's not just an upper body thing where he tucks in this way. If he feels here, like he's not making his direct escapes off of this. Okay, the bridges, the upas, or the elbow escapes at this point. What he'll do is he plants his feet on the ground. He can go ahead, scoot his way here towards his head and move his elbows down. They're going to squirm. There's nothing in the Jiu-Jitsu playbook, rulebook thought process that says if you're on the ground, if you're not comfortable on the ground, that you have to stay on the ground, that is glued to the ground. Quite the contrary. If you're not happy with your connection to the ground, if you're not happy with your ground position, move. Scoot, squirm, shimmy, do what you have to do. Get up off the ground if you have to. If you don't feel like that's where your advantage is at, there's nothing that says we have to stay on the ground in any particular application of Jiu-Jitsu. Again, it's a very simple escape right here. Okay, simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. Okay, so don't look at that. But if I have this high mount right now, okay, and the arms are forced up here. Again, Trevor can't make his direct escapes. So, okay, he's going to be on the ground. He's connected to the ground. Heel his foot on the ground, ball the foot on the ground. He's going to scoot his body this way and at the same time, get his elbows down. Okay, and this isn't the mount that I wanted right now. Okay, or this isn't a mount that I feel as strong as if I was up towards the shoulder at this point. Okay, it's a subtle difference, but there is a difference between the two mounts. Okay, so what do I do from here? Number one, I could try to bully my way back up here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and drive up at this point and be here. But again, against Trevor, I know that was an intentional move where he drove down this way. Once he's gone ahead and protected his position, it's not likely to let me get that back too easily. He holds his elbows tight right there and move up. You see I'm actually kind of scooting him up at this point. Okay, so that makes things difficult. So if I can't have a high mount, I'm perfectly happy to move back down to a low mount. Okay, I'm always happy to move back down to a low mount. I just need to maintain the position. Okay, so sometimes it means I have to go switch back and forth between high and low. If I want to switch back to a low mount, one that I feel like I have more control because I was losing some control, watch this. I'll go ahead, plant my hands on the ground, place my weight on my hands, so I'll lean forward on that so my hips get light. When my hips are light, they're mobile. When they're mobile, they're mobile. That's a little bit redundant right there. Apologize. But when they're mobile, I can move. And watch, I'll go ahead and now scoot back. Hips drive over Trevor's hips. I'll continue scooting back. I'll drive my legs underneath him in that grapevine position. Heels up, toes pointed in. And when I've locked in my position where my hips are at, then my weight comes off of my hands. I'll shift back towards my hips again. And then I have the low mount, which we've been discussing, which is easier to get to, easier to maintain, although I lose some offensive capabilities. Now, aside from the ability to transition between positions there, between high mount and low mount, there's knowing how my weight is distributed between each of those and what I have to do with my weight as I go through, okay? Understanding weight distribution and how I move myself and what's capable of happening is a big thing about being coordinated in body awareness, or really body awareness at that point. I'm always keenly aware of everything I do, where my weight goes, okay? So if I had a high mount right now or any other mount, I usually like to keep my weight more towards my lower body. I'm not really driving on my hips. I'm more on my shins at this point, okay? But we'll say it's on the lower half of my body. I start losing things right now, okay? But if my weight stays on my hips right now, I'm not that mobile at this point to where I'm controlled, okay? And it gives Trevor an advantage at this point, okay? Because I'm not happy about this position. I don't like being stuck in the middle for these mounts. I like to either control the shoulders or the hips, okay? So I'm gonna make this transition. Watch, I'll go ahead. Plant my hands on the ground, plant my weight towards my hands. Oftentimes as he's scooting, his legs are gonna have to come up. He's gonna scoot out this way. So it makes it easier for me to slide and get that grapevine. I'll dig the heels of my palms into the ground. I'll drive hips over hips. I'll continue driving, grapevine position, toes up, heels up, toes in, heels up. And then once I'm in the position that I want to, my weight transfers back to my hips and I'll stay heavy here. And then I'm not mobile again, okay? Faster, more real speed right now. Here we go. I have this low mount, right? Or I have this high mount. And boom, I'll go ahead and drive into the low mount right there. And Trevor's not going anywhere. And again, my prime mission right now is maintaining position, okay? And making sure he can't escape that mount, okay? Again, these good positions are always going to be diligence and maintenance and awareness to maintain as opposed to anything else. But I'm going to go ahead and drive in and be heavy on it, okay? So in that sense, I can switch from a high mount to low mount. Honestly, I'd rather have the high mount because I feel more comfortable there. I have more offensive capabilities. Not to say the low mount doesn't have offensive capabilities. I feel more comfortable on the high mount though, because I can make, quite frankly, my opponents suffer more on that. But I'm happy simply to maintain the mount, okay? My ability to transition within positions, okay, is very important, okay? Now, having said all that, what if I want to switch from a low mount to a high mount, okay? Now, strictly speaking, the way that I have this mount right now, hips over hips, grapevine, heels up, toes in. My arms are widely outstretched right now. There's actually not a lot of offense I'm going to do to you at this point, okay? Why? Because my hands are out of the way right now. My hands are basically 100% focused on maintaining this position. Not to say I don't have finishes off of this, but clearly I'm not going for anything at this point, okay? Sometimes when I do this, when my hands are outstretched, there's a variety of reasons. We'll see at this point, this could cause a temptation for Trevor to forget about his safety as much, okay? To not think about maintaining position, and his arms get a little looser, okay? Sometimes Trevor does have to kind of make that choice in this case. Simply put, he can't stay safe in there forever. Like this low mount, even though I said low offense, I don't mean zero offense. He's not safe as long as he's in this position. Sometimes, even an experienced person is going to have to go ahead and think about, ooh, inherently if this position isn't safe, sometimes I have to put some risks out there to get out. Because just staying there, maintaining the status quo is not going to do him any good, okay? So the arms come out loose. He's making a little bit of a calculated attack. Sometimes it'll be here, sometimes it's going to be down. Sometimes people will reach up and try to tie up around your torso, thinking of holding you tightly over here. Whatever he decides to do in this case, if his arms loosen up, I look at that as an opportunity for transitioning back to that high mount. His elbows are loose. He's not thinking about protecting that position. So I'm going to move into the high mount. Look, my weight goes back to my hands again. When my weight's on my hands, my hips are light. When my hips are light, they're mobile. When they're mobile, watch, I can go ahead, thrust up, come up into that high mount, knees over shoulders, top of my feet posted on the ground, posture slightly over my hips in this case. And then once I'm in the position that I want to be in, my weight comes back off of my hands and goes back to my hips, so I'm less mobile. I've basically locked it in at this place by placing my weight where I want it to go. Okay. Now, if Trevor goes ahead and wants to move, escape out of this, and why wouldn't he right there? He starts doing open. I can switch back to a low mount. Hands go back into the ground, thrust my hips back, grapevine my legs, come back in, and there we go. Trevor gets complacent, he's loose, his arms come up, boom, I can switch into that high mount from that position. And I can go back and forth, just looking to maintain the position again. The key on things right now is I have to maintain the position. As long as I can maintain the position, as long as I maintain a dominant position, keep myself safe, I'll have an opportunity to finish somebody off. It's the other side of the same cone. As long as the person's still in the encounter, as long as you're still in the encounter, as long as you haven't, keep yourself safe, as long as you haven't been injured, incapacitated, or you haven't tapped out or surrendered, you always have a chance of coming back and winning. Okay, but that's the dual side of how things work in jiu-jitsu. I always have a chance to eventually escape and prevail. I always have a chance to finish somebody off as long as I maintain the dominant position. I'm always have a chance to escape as long as I haven't tapped out. Okay, that's how it works right there. And it's that battle. Again, I compare it a lot of times of a battle of inches as opposed to miles on this. Or I like football analogies on this. American style football, because I don't play, I don't understand soccer. I do a little bit. I'm more of an American football fan. Screw you. Kidding. I can tell some stories. If you like soccer, that's on you. Okay. Actually, I don't dislike soccer. I just like the NFL better. Okay. But anyway, I think about it as actually the analogy works in soccer, I guess, but like, you know, being on the 50-yard line right there. Okay. The closer you get to your opponent's goal, the more chances you have of finishing somebody off, the less likely you are to take a safety. If I'm all the way on my own goal line right here, I'm pressing forward in this direction right there. I just have to get on my own goal zone because like I'm in danger of like losing or getting scored on myself at that point. Okay. So I look at this battle right there. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, the analogy works. And I'm basically marching down the field towards my opponent's goal line. But the closer I get to the goal line, okay, the closer I get, or the further I get down the field, the better chances I have of scoring, the less of a chance it is that I'm going to lose things. Okay, even if I throw an interception, if I'm on my own goal line, I throw an interception, the chance of them running 100 yards back and scoring is a lot less than if I was on my own goal line, I throw it and they only have 5 yards to run back. Okay, so I think the football analogy works pretty well in that sense. Okay, but not to go too much on a tangent right there. My goal is to maintain position. I can go ahead and incrementally turn it up and move down the field and get a better position right there. But the goal right now is to simply learn how to maintain our position. And the position broadly is what we're doing is keeping the mount. Okay, the position we're trying to do is can switch between low and high. I definitely want to maintain the mount. In terms of going to IBJJF scoring or tournament scoring, they don't make a differentiation if there's 4 points for a high mount or a low mount. Okay, all they care about is the mount. Okay, you score any type of mount, there's a specification that you have to have both legs on the ground, both knees down on the ground. But as long as you score a mount, it's 4 points. They don't really care what variation of the mount. First, although I do care about what variation of the mount is in terms of how to deal with my opponent and what's a better strategy for me at that given time, for purposes of right now, I'm maintaining the mount. I don't care which variation of the mount. As long as I have a mount, as long as I've established some level of domination, I'm happy in maintaining a mount. Okay? And just being able to switch between low and high. There's other variations of the mount, but I think right now when you're working with a partner with getting these concepts down, this is an excellent drill to just go ahead and simply maintain a mount and moving between low and high, high and low. Okay. Although purposely I tend to go more for the highs, but that's my tendency right there. But the idea is one, understand that, drill that, get that, and there's some core fundamental concepts in there that'll help you out down the road. Okay. Now, that's about everything that I wanted to teach and cover on the mount right there. But I do have to address 2 things right now. 2 things I'm going to go ahead and address right now. The mount that I'm working on right now, the mount that I showed, relatively generic. It will work for most people in most situations. Okay. Every time I show a fundamental technique, there's the idea that like there's core concepts that I want you to learn first. Okay. They're as important, if not more important sometimes than the technique themselves. Okay. I'm not going to rehash everything I said, but if you go back and rewind or been listening carefully, like I'm throwing out a lot of fundamental knowledge right now that'll be useful to you down your later stages of jiu-jitsu. Okay. That understanding right there. Okay. And specifically these mounts, these low mounts and high mounts, are very, again, 90% of the time this will work against 90% of your opponents. 50% of the time works 100% of the time. That was a joke. I can always tell by Trevor's reaction if it was a good joke or not. Right there.
It was a verbatim Rob Burgundy, sorry.
So yeah,
New
so,
words though.
yeah, good. So like I throw out these references out there. So sometimes I get that. Anyway, okay. So I'm assuming in this case, when I show this low mount and a high mount, that you're dealing with somebody relatively close to your size, okay? Or that you have the leg capability to either hit the grapevine, okay, or even slide up to the high mount with both your legs touching, your shins touching the ground in this case, like I am right now, okay? Sometimes you're working with somebody that you can't quite do that with, okay? Your legs are short, let's face it, they're fat. I'll go ahead and say it right now. I don't feel bad about that. They're barrel chested enough, or your legs aren't quite touching the ground, okay? So the question is, what do I do? What is the modification that I can do in this case, okay? When you look at me, I rarely have to make these modifications. Let's go to the high mount right now. Let me show you something. Okay. Now, the width of Trevor versus the length of my legs right now, okay, I can have both shins on the ground fairly easily with room to spare, okay? And I'm not gonna apologize for having long legs. It gives me an advantage in certain cases, my height, but there's certain positions that you'll actually do better being low to the ground. Sure, okay, but this isn't necessarily one of them. So if you feel right now from this position that you can't have both your shins comfortably on the ground, the modification you can make for a high mount is you can bring one leg up like so, and I'll go ahead and drive in. You see how my toes are moving past Trevor's legs? Maybe you can't from this angle right here. I'm realizing I forgot to turn on this light. Dark. Let's see what I'm doing. Forgetting to do this. See if I can do this side. All right, that gives me a better view of it right now. We're live, right? So again, if my shins can't comfortably touch the ground, both knees aren't touching the ground, and the tops of both feet aren't touching the ground, if you find that they're way too wide for this, go ahead and bring one leg up, like so. Okay, so your toes are past the shoulders, my ankles really crammed into the shoulders, and I can squeeze my legs together here, okay? And the same thing, if he goes ahead and bridges, I can go ahead and react in the same way. If he goes ahead, especially when I'm holding on to the arms, he tries to move side to side as I'm squeezing onto my legs right there, it's gonna be difficult for him to move, okay? So that's a modification I would do if they had to be a lot larger than myself, okay? And there's cases, there's people I've rolled with and worked with that even I can't get my legs down. I'm 6'2", okay? So that's the modification you make. Now, I would say because of my body type, I tend to prefer to get both shins on the ground because it gives me options when I eventually do go after the attack, and I will attack off of this eventually, I can attack to either side, okay? If you bring one leg up and you have this, then basically my offense is a bit halved at this point. Like, you know, there's certain things I'm gonna be able to do, and there's certain things I'm not gonna be able to do. I'm definitely committed to a side, okay? But half of a high mount in my case, a lot of times is better than no mount at all, okay? And again, I'm not super as concerned about the finish just yet. I just need to make sure that I can maintain the position. So again, if you're working, if you feel like you have the shorter legs, you go ahead and drill less. And it doesn't really matter which side for maintenance purposes, you go here or here. It will eventually matter when it comes into what attacks I'm gonna go after this, okay? Or even sometimes what transitions to the mount. But this is a modified high mount at this point. Okay, so that's thing number one I need you to know about maintaining that high mount. Okay, now the other thing is I tend to show positions that convey a big sense of fundamentals, like, you know, get some concepts down. That's very important to me. Okay, that's one. And number two, I tend to show positions that I happen to do pretty well. Like I've been working on that I know, like I've been doing this for years and years and years. Everything I've ever shown, or everything I've currently shown so far up to this point right now, is stuff that's in my personal arsenal that I do a lot of, okay? That's not to say that there aren't techniques that don't quite work well in my personal arsenal that aren't my favorites, that aren't perfectly valid, okay? As long as you have a reason for justifying the position that you do, as long as you know the why that you do something, past the fundamentals, past whatever, past what works well for you, as long as you can justify it in some way, then it can be a valid technique, okay? You never want to do a technique just because you saw somebody else do it, okay? Even if it's me. You need to logically interpret this and be able to apply this yourself. And as an instructor, I can tell you whether I think you have on a good path or a bad path. But if you can logically defend the position that you have from an intellectual standpoint, if not a practical standpoint, then it's a valid position. Okay, don't let anybody ever tell you this way or that my way is 100% the right way. Okay, I don't believe that at all. Okay, although I can definitely tell you with my experience whether you're going down the right path or the wrong path, or whether your justifications or reasoning is there. Okay, so having said that, again, the mounts that I've shown, this low mount and the high mount, are absolutely part of my personal arsenal. Like I love doing those two types of mounts, and they work very well for my body type, and I can get them on against the vast majority of folks that I go against. Okay, there is another type of mount that I happen to suck at. Okay, that I can't do at all, and it's because of the length of my body. Okay, it's the length of my body. I very rarely get to pull off this mount on folks right now. Okay, I definitely can't pull it off on anybody shorter than myself, and I can count on one hand over the last few years of people that I've trained with that are taller than me. Okay, so there is a variation of a mount. I'll let you know what I'm talking about. You know that? The what? Kind of like a frog mount, where your chest lays over, your feet come in.
Oh, feet on the hips.
Yeah.
Monkey mount.
Monkey mount.
So I'll let Trevor explain this right now, because Trevor does this more effectively. And Trevor's a lean guy or a lanky guy himself, but he is shorter than I am. I'll let you explain.
Oh, you want me to explain it?
Well, I can't do this now.
Okay.
So.
Well, so my shins are small enough that it fits in between Gumby's armpit and his hip. That's just because of the length of my legs. If you're a shorter leg folk, this might be the only mount that might work well for you, and you might feel that your shins fit perfectly into most people's torso. I find that mine fit in there too. Instinctually, I like to keep my feet on my opponent's hips, and it kind of makes it harder for them. It's kind of more like the structure of my body, keeping just this little bit of space here. My hips can kind of move forward on this. I can bully very well. I can keep my knees tight if I need to. I can widen out. Generally, this is just a good position to launch your attacks at this point. And obviously, it's a good position of maintenance, right? But I'm good. I'm not really keeping my weight so much sitting down. I'm trying to maintain position. The root of my problem really is my opponent's hips. If I can keep their hips at bay, I can pretty much stop their defenses at that point. And like I said, we're going to be working on attacks more at this point. But this is just kind of a monkey mount. I remember always Eddie Bravo calling it a monkey mount. Probably call it a bunch of other things, but seeing my feet are sticky on my opponent's hips, my shins are about as small as they need to be, and my knees are kind of resting near my opponent's armpit on that. We're always trying to maintain this space, always trying to conquer this space.
And like I said, I personally don't do that mount that well. I'm thinking that's a perfectly valid mount. Trevor does it really well. Eddie Bravo does that one really well. My shins are too damn long in comparison to most people's torso. Like I find my legs are just kind of all over the place. I'm too loose at this point, and I don't particularly like that mount for myself. But if you're ever feeling like, okay, my body type isn't working all that well, and let's be blunt. Like Trevor and I have good body types for jiu-jitsu and sort of similar body types in lots of ways. Like we're lanky, we're flexible. I'm a bit taller than Trevor is. Both of us can use our weight distribution, feel heavy when we need to be though, like we rely on our technique. But we use in a certain way, we use our attributes to enhance our technique. So we know our fundamentals well, we can go ahead and make adjustments on that. We have our preferences based on that, and we go from there. There's other things we base preferences on, but body type is definitely one of them, okay? So that's a perfectly valid reason why to do something or another. The core concepts are still the same, okay? But sometimes you have to make the modifications at that point. In some cases, like I said, I can't do that particular, I'm not good at that mount. My shins are too long, my knees flare out way too much. I have a very hard time doing that type of mount. And that's okay, like I said. Although, like I said, in a traditional sense, I feel like we're very traditional body types. Look at Hoist Gracie, who's the guy that got most of us into it. Hoist Gracie and I have almost the exact same specifications in terms of height and body type. And flexibility, he's crazy flexible also. But Jiu-Jitsu is largely about adapting. Once you understand the fundamentals and the basics and the rule set, when I say rule set, what you're doing on this, there's absolutely a way to adapt everything to your own body type, to make Jiu-Jitsu your own, okay? But it's understanding these core concepts and fundamentals first. They're going to be part of it, okay? like I said, now that's pretty much exactly what I wanted to cover, and that took us a full hour to get to this. Again, if you have any questions, not only can you go ahead, follow us on Facebook. Okay, I have the Heroes page right there. I'm happy to answer any questions right there. For the Heroes members, like I know this might be an odd time for you, but if you can make it onto the Zoom session, I'm always happy to answer questions there. You can ask them directly on the Facebook comments, or on the YouTube comments. While we're doing that, there's a comment section. I think there's a chat over here that I'm happy to answer the questions on. Yeah, happy training. Thanks so much for supporting right now. We'll see you real soon. Thanks for being here.
Chat.